Learn Free Music Theory, lesson number 19. Okay, so in this lesson what we're going to talk about is major and minor triads. Now, basically how to build chords with theory on paper, and it's actually really a pretty cool topic. So let's get started. Okay, so here is triads. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at is what are triads? So triads are basically three groups. Well, if it's three notes in the chord, then usually we call it a triad. If it's four notes in the chord, then it's called a chord. A chord is basically a group of notes played together at the same time. So basically this is more of like a technical term, and people usually call it a triad, but you could still call it a chord and it would still be kind of correct as well. Basically it would be correct if you call it a chord, but to be more on the theoretical side, you'd want to call it a triad. Okay? So that's the first thing. So triads are made up of three notes, okay? Just three notes. And those three notes are called the chord tones, okay? So when you're learning harmonic analysis later on, sounds tough, but it's really not. Basically, you're just figuring out, well, I guess it is sort of an art form, but anyway, yeah, we'll get into that later. But basically, you have things that are called chord tones, so you might as well start learning it now. When you have a major chord, such as this is an F major chord, because you call it by the bottom thing right here. So it is an F chord, and basically these notes are in the chord tone. So those are other notes that basically harmonize with that thing, with that letter there, the F. You always arrange your triads and chords basically in groups of thirds. So major and minor thirds are the building blocks of all chords pretty much, other than some kind of weird ones, but some people like rearrange them and then still make them into thirds somehow. But anyway, that's way off there. So anyway, but basically all mainstream chords are built from groups of thirds, either major or minor, and then they drop some in later, like you can get to these crazy things, but we're not even going to touch that yet. We're just learning basic things right now. So major triad right here is grouped or made up of two intervals. So the first interval is from the F to the A, okay? So that's F to A. Now, if you know your intervals by now, which I hope you do, it's a major third. F to A is a major third. Okay, now what would be A to C? Now, I already have it written down here, so you should probably know. If you can't, then yeah. Maybe it's just really blurry, and YouTube isn't letting me process my videos in HD like before, because I had to re-upload like lesson 8 before. But anyway, so from A to C is a minor third, basically. So we have major and then minor. So instead of like looking major third, minor third, that's more info than we really need. All we need to really look at is just call it major or minor and just know that all of them are thirds. That's just kind of cutting out the BS that goes with it. So I like to think of a battery. Yeah, my drawing isn't exactly the best there. I'm not a very good drawer at all, but I try. So this is what I tried to do for you guys, so hopefully you don't laugh at me too much, but this is a battery. Yeah, I know. Kind of looks more like a pig. If I was like this, and then like, yay, it's a walking battery pig. Yay! Okay, maybe not. But anyway, wow, that actually kind of looks like sort of like a pig now. But anyway, okay, so you have major and minor. Okay, so major comes first, and minor comes second. Now, why is this important? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because if you look at which one comes first, you can tell right away what chord it is, okay? And also you can build chords by knowing this pattern as well. So if you know that you have a note and you want to build a major chord off of it, all you do is you go up a major third from that note. So if you're on like D sharp, just go up a major third from that, okay? And then you go up a minor third from that, and then boom, you've got your chord. Pretty simple. So anyway, that's basically all you really have to do. Now, so major third to minor third, Now, for a minor triad, it goes minor, major. So you've just taken the peg or the battery or whatever you want to call it, and you flipped it. So it was this way, and then you just go whoop, and then now you have a minor chord. So you have minor third first, and then a major third second. So whichever one comes first, that's the one that it represents. So a minor triad, it has a minor third to start it off. A major triad has a major third to start it off. Okay, catching me? You kind of get the drift here? Okay, so now, what's a really simple way to change a major chord from a, what is a really simple way to lower or to change a major triad to a minor triad? It's actually very simple. All you have to do is just lower what we call the third. Although to someone that doesn't know about music theory, it looks like the second, but it's actually called the third. If you're doing kind of like later stuff, you call this note here the root of the chord, because it's at the bottom. You know, like a tree has roots down at the bottom, and then in the middle we call it the trunk. No, it doesn't. The tree similarity stops there. Actually, I was just kind of playing around. It's actually called the third now, and then this part up here is called the fifth. So even though there's only 3 notes, it's the first, the third, and the fifth. Now if you had to guess, where do you think they got those names from? Intervals, yes. This is a root, so instead of calling it unison or whatever, they just call it the root because it's the main one. But from here to here, this note here is a third away from the bottom root chord, and then this is a fifth away. So it's called the fifth. So you could say the middle note, but really it's actually we'd call it the third, okay? So if I added another note up here, we'd call that the 7th. And if we one up here, it'd be at the 9th, and then the 11th, and the 13th, and the 15th. And believe it or not, there's actually chords that are made up of those kind of notes, like they add other ones and then they take away some, but I'm not going to get into that until later on. That's just kind of like a sneak preview. Anyway. Okay, so basically what I want you guys to remember here is that major triads have major and minor thirds, okay? So it goes major, minor, and minor has minor, major. Okay, so if that's all you remember from this lesson, that's the most important thing. Now if you could remember something else, it would be to change from major to minor, just lower the third down a semitone. So put a flat on it. To change a minor to a major, just raise the third note up a semitone. So in D minor, you have D, like a D minor chord is D, F, A. To change it to D major, you go D, F sharp, A. So you've raised the middle note, or the third, up a semitone. And that's it. Cool, huh? So that is basically all you really need to know for that. Now I'm just going to quickly go over something called inversions, and we'll get on to that. So yeah, anyway. Let's do that. Oh, I reached for my eraser instead of my little video stopper thing. So I gotta do that. So I gotta erase this and then draw out inversions. And then we're good to go. Okay, so we covered the triads, but now I have to cover the next topic of these, which is called inversions. So what an inversion is basically like you take the 3 notes that you have and you can mix them up in a different order. So say you were using something like C, E, G, or E, B, or E, G, B, okay? You can say those things, but you could reorganize them in a different order. Like for C, E, G, you could go E, G, C, or you could go G, C, E. So there's different ways that you can organize those notes. So basically what inversions are is there's 3 different patterns, and you'll be using them in like chord stuff later on. So this is kind of a good primer for when you get into harmony down the road, or just anything really. So basically inversions, this is how it works. You have your root inversion, your first inversion, and your second inversion. Okay? It's very simple. Literally, you take the bottom note here, and then you move it an octave above that. So this is an E. So in the first inversion, I've taken this note here and I moved it up to here. And these two are the same. They're the same there and there, both ways. So the only difference between those is this E is now an octave higher. So you're still using the same 3 notes, but they're just in a different order. That's it. Okay, now for the second inversion, same thing. You just take the bottom note again and you move it up an octave. So now this note and this note stay the same, but this note changes and goes up. Okay? So it goes up an octave. And then what would happen if you went from here to here? Well, you'd be right back to root again. That's why there's only 3 inversions. Okay? So those are your 3 inversions. So remember, it's root, first, and second. I want you to memorize this, okay? These, you don't have to memorize them yet, but down the road, if you do harmony, these are the shorthand combinations that you'll be basically asked to memorize, and you will write everything out in harmonic analysis with these numbers. So root equals 5-3, first is represented by just a single 6, and then 6-4 for your second inversion. Basically, they would be on the side, kind of like if you were gonna do like your root chord, like your tonic chord, it would be like 1-5-3, 1-6, and 1-6-4. But you could change that, like basically this Roman numeral changes depending on what chord you're in, based on what key you're in, and then this has to do with the inversion of that chord if there is one. So that gets further down the road and you can see how it starts to get a bit more complex. But we'll get to that later. I just wanted to include this so that it kind of connects the dots when you get there. You're like, oh, I remember that back in the day when he was teaching me this thing. So yeah. And this is very useful to look at here. Okay, this is how you'll quickly identify which interval or which inversion you're dealing with here. So if you're looking at a root chord, it's always going to look like a snowman like this. See how it's just like boom, 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 3 snowballs on top of each other. Yeah, this is always a root chord, okay? Here, first inversion always looks like two little snowballs here, and this one's just floating up here because of an anti-gravitational device. And it's like whirl, 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 or not, I don't know. How I first did it, when I was learning this when I was about 7 or something. Yeah, I think I was 7. When I was 7, I started to I connected the dots that you just look at the top one that's floating, and if it's floating 1 by itself, it's 1, it's a first. If there's 2, it's 2, a second. So, and if there's none, then it's root. So if there's none, it's root. If there's 1 note by itself, then it's a first, and if there's 2 notes by itself up top, then it's second. Okay? That's literally it, and that is all inversions. So memorize that, and let's do some homework. No. Alright, so for your homework, this is what I'd like you to do. I want you to draw 30 major and minor, so 15 of each, triads, and then I also want you to use all 3 different inversions. So write out the 1, and then write it in 3 different inversions, and then that counts as 1. So I want you to do 30 of those sets, and then memorize. Make sure you memorize that if you want a major chord, it's plus, minus. So major third, minor third. If you want a minor chord, it's minor first and then major. But I'm sure after all those exercises, you will know it inside and out. So yeah. Anyway, other than that, probably also remember that the middle, when you lower or raise the third, it changes if it's major or minor. Okay? And that is about it. So I hope you guys found that lesson helpful, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye.